Sticks and stones. Good morning and welcome to the neat end of my kitchen. What follows is going to be difficult to talk about and probably difficult to listen to. It draws heavily, but not only, from personal experience and observation. We start with a little history. In 1983 in Norway, 3 adolescent boys committed suicide, most likely because of severe bullying by peers. But this led their government to sponsor an anti-bullying program. As part of that program, Dan Alweus of the University of Bergen developed a survey for children that begins by defining what bullying is. Let me paraphrase. Bullying involves saying mean and hurtful things or making fun of someone or calling them mean and hurtful names. It can also involve completely ignoring them or excluding them from a group or leaving them out of things on purpose. It can even involve physical acts, hitting, kicking, pushing, shoving. And it can include trying to make others dislike someone, perhaps by lying about them or spreading false rumors. These things happen repeatedly, and the target may find it difficult to defend himself or herself. This is not the same as friendly and playful teasing or arguments between equals or, for instance, siblings. But even teasing can become bullying when it is repeated, especially when it's done in a mean and hurtful way. And it isn't always children bullying other children. I turned 6 in 1960, and there seemed to be a lot of us kids running around, playing games, laughing, joking, and chasing one another all over the neighborhood, treating the tops of brick walls as tightropes and hunting for tadpoles in puddles. For a bunch of six-year-olds, we were apparently mostly unsupervised, although someone's mother was usually watching from a distance. December in Southern California can be pretty warm, and we were all outside. I think we were playing at caroling. One day, some of the girls started teasing me because, in their words, I sang like a grown-up. From their hurtful tone, it was clear that this wasn't a compliment. But I thought I just sang right. Then one of the mothers decided to play a practical joke. She invited me to be part of a neighborhood Christmas pageant, but I would have to wear a silk dress to participate. Of course, I didn't have such a thing. We couldn't even afford it. But I raced home and put on my Sunday best and ran back to that house, hoping. No one was home. At least not to me. And I never saw those people again. We moved again very soon after that. From a distance of 60 years, one shocking thing was that I was being bullied for something I did well. I wasn't being teased about the way I looked. The other shocking thing was that an adult was involved in picking on a 6-year-old. My home life wasn't exactly a dream either. Soon after that incident, my father began to verbally and physically abuse me. He had served in Europe in World War II, and I'm pretty sure he had PTSD. He self-medicated with alcohol. When he was sober, he was a wonderful father who adored me. But when he got drunk, it was a different story. At first, he and Mom just yelled at each other a lot. But one day, he tried to hit Mom. She hit back, and I kid you not, it was with a rolling pin. He never tried to hit her again. But Mom worked nights, leaving me alone with Pop, who then got drunk and began to tell me how stupid and ugly I was, among other things I didn't understand. It seemed as though he wanted me to cry so that he had an excuse to beat me. It's just as well that I was an only child. You'd think that that would have toughened me up. No, it just helped make me exceptionally good target for the other bullies in my life, even long after Mom divorced Pop. The bullies at school could get a reaction out of me every time, and unlike Mom, I was afraid to fight back in any way. We also moved quite a lot, sometimes for work and sometimes, I suspect, because we were asked to. That made it difficult to make and keep close friends. All this meant I spent a lot of time alone or with adults who tended to send me back outside to play alone. Being alone with few or no friends at my back and already cowed by my father made me more vulnerable than most to bullying. I have almost always been fat. No, let's be honest, obese. I have evidence. A photograph of myself in a homemade Halloween costume. I was 3 years old and clearly overweight, although those who loved me chose to call it baby fat. At that age, it certainly wasn't my fault, but it was a combination of genetics and the family lifestyle. Later, I was typically the only obviously fat girl in any given school. Over the years, I think I heard every possible taunt almost every day. Fatty, 2x4 can't get through the bathroom door. If you stick a pin in her, do you think she'll pop like a balloon? What's the matter? Can't you take a joke? Run! She can't catch us. How stupid are you, fatso? When I tried to ask for help, I mostly got variations on one message. Ignore them. Don't let them bother you. Tell them that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, the words did hurt. And sometimes there were also sticks and stones. Such advice actually made me feel worse. It was as if it was all my fault because I wasn't tough enough, emotionally or physically, to handle the bullying by myself. And I think this is one of many reasons I have so much trouble asking for help when I need it today. In retrospect, I should have asked for help more persistently. Mom had, in fact, defended herself against Pop. But I didn't learn until much later that she, the eldest of 3, and overweight herself as a child, had protected her brothers from other boys, sometimes with her fists. But I didn't let her know what was happening until I had no choice. One time, a tough girl decided to beat me up after school. Her 2 friends acted as witnesses and a cheering section. As I had done at home, I dropped to my knees and covered my head with my hands. In the process, my glasses fell off and broke. That time, I had to tell Mom what was going on. When Mother confronted Mother in the principal's office, the other woman was all, "My daughter would never do a thing like that." However, the next day, and everyone thereafter until at least the end of the school year, the girl was almost sarcastically nice to me, from a distance. I suspected that she had gotten a beating herself when she got home that day. I now wonder how bad her home life had been, that she needed to feel physically powerful somewhere. To be clear, I am not saying that all targets of bullying and all who bully have had bad home lives. I am saying that some children and adults need to feel stronger, smarter, richer, or just plain better for whatever reason. And some people's thinking is just off. And fat isn't the only thing that someone can be bullied for. People have been bullied because of physical attributes as varied as height, weight, skin color, gender, visible defects, whether their hair is straight or curly or the wrong color. They have been bullied for wearing glasses or braces or special shoes, or for not wearing any of those. They have been bullied for such things as an unusual name, a different cultural or national origin, or an accent. They have been bullied for being too smart or not smart enough. They have been bullied because they're good at something, and the bully isn't, and is jealous. They have been bullied because they're bad at something, and the bully isn't, and is proud. They have been bullied because they didn't have the latest popular toys or the most popular clothing styles, because they had pierced ears or didn't, because they wore makeup or didn't. It goes on. Any excuse or no excuse at all works as long as the bullies get the reaction they expect. One thing that can make bullying effective is that it isn't always based on a lie. I really was fat. One of my high school friends really was skinny. If the bullying is based on a truth, the target may already be painfully aware. I certainly was. Repeated nasty remarks, especially about something you're powerless to change, grind you down and are simply cruel. Other things might be true, but irrelevant. Maybe you don't have curly hair, but so what? But after you've heard nasty comments over and over, you may buy into the idea that the problem is real and important, and that it and the bullying are somehow all your fault. On the other hand, some people you might think would be bullied aren't always. When I was in 5th grade, one of my classmates was part of a family with genetic problems. She and her siblings were true albinos, partially deaf, and had visibly malformed ears. They were decisively different from the rest of us. Despite all that, she and her brothers were in mainstream classes thanks to hearing aids. They had strength in numbers and size in the boys' case. No one picked on any of them, at least that school year. On the other hand, there was a special classroom for children with disabilities, including those the school called slow learners, and yes, the bullies called them dummies whenever possible. This was in the 1960s. Most of the students in that particular school were white or Hispanic. We had a handful of black students who had been bused in from another town. All the black students had been put into that special classroom, whether they needed to be or not. One of the most eye-opening days of my young life came when some white boys cornered the black boys at recess, hurling all manner of insults, racial and otherwise, calling them dummies and insulting their mothers in some detail. It was a nasty standoff for a while, and I know I wanted to speak up somehow, but I think I was too afraid. Even sympathetic bystanders can freeze up. For the first time, though, I think I truly understood that I wasn't the only target of such abuse. And I begin to have a glimmer of an idea that black people could be wrongly abused. High school was better, I'm happy to say. I found my niche in music and theater arts, and I could lose myself in books and television in my free time. I had friends, and some of them had also been marked as different in some way. One girl I hung out with was constantly claiming to be allergic to certain foods, and that list seemed to change almost daily. She was frighteningly thin. In retrospect, I'm pretty sure she had anorexia. But together, there were two of us, and no one bothered us. Not even with the classic fatty and skinny jokes. Another friend was pale, red-headed, skinny, loose-limbed, a guy who clearly hadn't caught up with that last growth spurt. He also lisped a little. To top it off, his parents had named him Lancelot. This was in the early 1970s, and quite a few of the boys bought into a lot of prevailing stereotypes. They assumed Lance was gay, although that wasn't the word they used. I personally witnessed some of the verbal abuse he got, but I don't know whether it ever became physical. Lance generally responded by laughing and doing things like flirting with his bullies and otherwise playing the stereotypes for laughs. I think he figured that laughing about it would keep him from getting beaten up after school. He never did any of these things when he was alone with just Steve and our buddy Steve. God, I can't talk. Our buddy Steve and myself. About the theater. Almost every time I was in a play, I would be cast in some motherly role or another. The mother abbess, an Irish housekeeper, the mother of mostly grown children, even at the age of 16 or 17. I was never going to be Maria in The Sound of Music. In one play, I played the wife and mother. The guy who played the husband, David, was even shorter than I am. The girl who played the other woman, Holiday, was around 6 feet tall. At one point, Holly dramatically bent Dave over backwards for a theatrical kiss, reversing a classic movie scene. Dave and Holly acted as though they enjoyed the resulting laughter, but I'm not so sure. Another was a one-act play. Once Upon a Playground involves a group of girls who are each different in some way. Tall, short, fat, skinny, needing braces, glasses, or corrective shoes. Maybe not too bright. They're all tomboys, preferring to climb trees and play baseball over playing with dolls, wearing pretty dresses, and going to dances. Do I have to say that I played the fat girl? Instead of being bullied for their differences, they band together and become the bullies. They relentlessly tease a girly girl who happens to have a funny nose and refuse to let her play with them. The play ends with the girl meeting a boy with a funny nose, someone just like her. When we took that play to a festival, the judges hated the subject matter, but praised my performance. They shouldn't have. I wasn't really acting. The character's main speech ends with, "I don't want to be fat and different. I wish I was thin. No, I wish everybody else was fat and we could all be miserable together." In recent years, with the advent of social media, bullies have found a new way to hound their targets. We have all heard the news stories about children and teens being bullied online, sometimes in ways far worse than what I endured. Some of these young people have been hounded to death. The thing about online bullying is that it can be anonymous, and some people, kids and adults, will say almost anything if they know they aren't going to get caught. According to a recent CNN article, however, our current online learning situation has actually decreased the amount of cyberbullying. I suspect it just isn't as satisfying when you can't see the target the next day at school. Another CNN article reported on a UK study that used the same questionnaire I mentioned earlier. The researchers found that cyberbullying is much less common than the traditional in-person sort. Again, many bullies need to see the reaction. Whether the bullying is in person or online, the targets may come to feel despair. They may not believe that anyone can or will help them, or they're afraid of embarrassment. Some don't seek help, and some of those who don't end in suicide, all because of words. People react to being targets in a variety of ways. Some, as we've seen, hide it with humor, like my friend Lance. Some have a forget you attitude that may or may not help them cope. Some can see the other side. Some become socially awkward loners. Some hide in fantasy, books, movies, their own imaginations, to avoid dealing with people. Some fight back, verbally or physically. Some become bullies themselves, and some turn to serious violence. An NPR report from last year talked about school shootings. The shooters generally had complicated histories. Most, but not all, had endured physical or emotional abuse and had violent, absent, or alcoholic family members. Most had experienced a significant personal loss, and that might have been the tipping point into violence. The article went on to note a 2004 study by the U.S. Secret Service and U.S. Department of Education. The researchers found that nearly 3/4 of school shooters had been bullied or harassed at school. I have a confession. The single most chilling movie I have ever seen was the 1970s version of Stephen King's Carrie. For those who don't know, Carrie was a frequent target of bullies for a variety of reasons. But Carrie found out that she had the ability to move objects with her mind. And she eventually used that power to destroy her abusers in spectacular fashion. When I first saw that movie, I recognized that when things had been at their worst for me, if I had had such a superpower, I too might have burned the place down with everyone in it. I never had that power or guns, but it's still terrifying to come to such a realization. We've been talking mostly about younger people, but what about when bullied children become adults? Again, everyone's reaction will be different. After college, I ran into Lance again. He had grown into that frame of his. He told me that he'd been a little confused himself in high school, in part because the girls, like me, mostly just wanted to be friends. But college girls had opened his eyes quite thoroughly. I ran into Dave again when I was at UCLA, where he was studying acting. And while he has worked in Hollywood, he's now a professor of psychology at Pepperdine University in Los Angeles. Interesting choice. What about me? I have plenty of proof that I'm not stupid, and I am respected at work for my knowledge and my skills. But despite many efforts, I'm still fat. Some people love me anyway and aren't afraid to show it. Still, I'm happiest alone or with people I love or know well. Some things still make me flinch, though. Well-meaning people who think they're helping drive me nuts. More, though, I hate it when I see people abuse others, even in fictional situations. Somehow I think it's just as well I never had children, though, because I'm not sure how I would have reacted if I found out that a child of mine was being bullied or was acting the bully. I regret that I have no way of knowing how the others fared. I can only hope that they found their way in life and found joy. There are some key lessons here. If you are being bullied as a child or as an adult, please seek help. Know that you are worthy of love and respect. People who try to hurt you are not your friends. Don't buy into their lies, and try to look realistically at any half-truths or truths that they share. It's hard to do when you're at school or on a job, but step away from the situation if you can. For instance, you can block trolls and bullies online, and you don't have to join the Trek team if you can't run worth beans. If you see someone being bullied, please try to help or ask for help on their behalf. The least you can do is stand by them as a true friend. Listen, be present. Remember that it's hard for one person alone to cope, but two or more people can take a stand together. Someone recently shared a drawing of a bear and a rabbit. At the end of the caption, the bear says that it only takes one voice on the side of what is right to inspire others to do the same. If you think someone you love is being a bully, child or adult, please seek help. It's tough to work with someone when you're too close to them emotionally. Help can come from family members, from teachers, counselors, or other professionals. If you're not comfortable talking to anyone else, know that Reverend Kate and our intern minister, Tyler Coles, are available. So is the care team. You'll also find some links to resources at the end of today's order of service. I can't promise that everything will magically be all right away, but there is hope. You can get through this. I and my friends did eventually, partly thanks to the people who cared and got involved. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe even joy. Thank you.